Fireflies, the essay in the anthology, appeared on a single page of the New Yorker in 1977. It is the shortest narrative based on memory that I've written. I'll read the story, a story retold to me by Gladys Jean, my wife. It constitutes the first half of Fireflies. The last half contains my response to that story based upon my experiences as a child and adolescent during the Great Depression, which, unlike the recent financial recession, brought Americans together. My wife is editor of a professional journal for one of the colleges at the university where I teach. The people, deans, other administrative officers, secretaries, who work on the floor where she has her office have a congenial and cooperative relationship and enjoy gathering occasionally during lunch hour or at the end of the working day to celebrate any of a variety of events in any of their lives: a marriage, a departure for a new job, a trip abroad, a birthday, the first day of spring after a hard winter. One afternoon early this spring, a former administrator stopped by for such a celebration. As the group was having refreshments at the large table in the conference room, this professor, a man not given to personal reminiscence, began to tell his neighbor about a bicycle trip he had taken with another student in 1936 in Germany. He was speaking quietly, but either because of a lapse in the general conversation or because of the nature of his story, everybody listened. The story was a simple one, told in a matter-of-fact voice of what he and his companions saw and did bicycling through Germany the summer following the remilitarization of the Rhineland. Perhaps in retelling his account, I am altering it in accordance with my own feelings and experience, and it is likely that the people at the party, the younger as well as the older, did much the same thing. The curious power of certain stories comes from some unconscious invitation to the listener to participate, to imagine himself an aspect of the teller. These two students, the professor-to-be and his friend, had come to Germany to see the castles on the Rhine, the Black Forest, and the picturesque towns of the travel posters, but what they actually saw had little to do with quaintness or charm. In every town, the buildings displayed swastikas on banners. Loudspeakers in every town square amplified shrill voices and martial music. The major streets were congested with parades and the movement of military personnel and equipment. On the handlebars, they had attached small American flags to identify themselves as visitors. Their bicycles, so decorated, became part of the parades, were caught in the middle of convoys. In a populous town, they sat on their bicycles in the back of a crowd, listening to Hitler give an impassioned speech and shouted words that they couldn't understand, but that turned everybody except them into what seemed a single body, a single answering voice. Once they rode through the gates, oddly open, of a camp for prisoners. Guards rushed at them with rifles, forcing them back. How do two young Americans respond to such nationalistic frenzy to an evil they can barely comprehend? In Germany, the towns and villages nestle in the valleys are rarely built upon the hills, as in Italy. Most castles on the Rhine have their towns far beneath them, and from the walls and windows of the towers, one can see the colored roof tiles and tiny spear spires beside the curving, glittering river. These two boys would tour, say, some castle. Then, removing the flags from their handlebars, they would hold them defiantly aloft and coast down the hill into the town, speeding through marketplaces and central squares. As they sped past the crowds and the swastika-decorated buildings, they sang together as loudly as they could the opening words of national songs of their own country. "Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain," or "Oh, say can you see, by the dawn's early light, would so proudly be hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, and careering around processions of armored cars and troop carriers, they shouted "Heil Roosevelt" to the soldiers, and then they pedaled furiously away up the opposite hill. Usually they stayed in a farmer's barn or camped on the heights above a town. Never that summer did anyone pursue them. Never were they molested or questioned. Never, except for that moment they had inadvertently strayed into the prison camp where they threatened. As they sat by their little cooking fire, as they stared at the stars from their sleeping bags, they spoke to each other of what they had seen, of what they had done that day. And so each day went that summer. Thank you.